Someone who knows about the importance of freedom and the strategic importance of freedom of speech is our friend from Penn, Canada, Bruce Walsh. Bruce, thanks for being in the studio today.
Good to be here, Ezra.
You know, you've been listening to some of these issues for years now. Penn Canada, first tell me a little bit, what is Penn Canada? Sounds like it's about pens. What does it stand for? What's
it stands for Poets, Essayists, Editors, and Novelists. It's the oldest human rights organization in the world.
Really?
Established in the United Kingdom after the aftermath of the First World War. It's now around the world, 144 chapters in 122 countries. We focus on freedom of speech in our home countries, and we also work with all the chapters around the world to help get prisoners, writers, out of jail.
That's Penn International, right?
Penn International.
Now, I want to disclose I joined Penn Canada. I wasn't really alert to these issues until I myself was sucked into a Human Rights Commission, and I was so delighted that Penn Canada put out a statement condemning the Alberta Human Rights Commission, and I'll tell you why. I'll be very candid, because I'm a right-wing guy, and when I think of novelists and poets and essayists and all these things you mentioned, I think of left-wingers. But it shows your principle that even though I think the center of gravity in your organization is to the left, that's not the point. The point is we all have the freedom to say our words. Am I right?
That's absolutely the point.
You know,
yeah, we don't come from the left or the right. Freedom of expression is what we stand for.
You know what, that made my day. When I was so surprised. There I was in Calgary. I felt like I was under siege. And then I saw your press release saying, Penn Canada, and you flew the flag of freedom for a cranky old Westerner, and that made me feel great. So it's nice to have you on the show. Let's talk about this Dire Straits thing. I mean, Dire Straits, that song, I can't get it out of my head. It's such a catchy song. That song went to #1 in Canada, in the United States. Rolling Stone says it's one of the best 100 guitar songs ever made in history. I trust their judgment. Now, they use the word faggot. Now, that's not a nice word, and I don't think we use that in polite company. Mark Knopfler of Dire Straits would say he was using that ironically to show the homophobia of the moving guy. But even if he said it to be mean, what's the right approach to handling that?
Well, I mean, it's just a word, isn't it? And if we want to eliminate words, then we're going to get into a lot of trouble. In Canada, I mean, we had this ruling which said that we shouldn't be using this word in the country. However, the word has real meaning. I mean, it goes back to you referred to it as a cigarette.
Well, it was in the Brits.
It was a bundle of
sticks.
It was a bundle of sticks used to burn homosexuals at the stake.
Oh, is that where?
So
I didn't even know that's where it came from.
This is where the word comes from.
A faggot of sticks.
A faggot of sticks.
I didn't know that's where the word came from. Okay, well, I mean, now some people, there's a theory in some minority cultures to grab hurtful words and rebrand them as, you know, the word gay itself, or queer.
Or perfect example.
Yeah, I mean, queer pride. You're taking that word and you're rebranding it. And even, you know, the N word, some black people grab it and use it as a sign of empowerment. I'm not going to be afraid of that word. Now, some gay people use the word fag to talk about themselves.
I refer to my friends as fags all the time. But I'm a gay man. I don't want you, on the other hand, to be calling me a fag. Because I'll get mad at you. And we'll have a discussion.
And that's I think you have, just as I have the right to say the word fag, you have the right to be mad at me and to push back, not physically, but to push back using your words and your ideas. What do you think of that?
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, freedom of expression really is about debate. It's about putting everything on the table, and we'll fight about it verbally. Do we agree with it? Do we disagree with it? This Dire Straits controversy actually, I think, has been good for the country. You know, on the one hand, we don't want to see anything censored. The song, as we heard earlier, has not been censored. Although some stations are using the replacement lyric, which is queenie. You know, like a queen is as offensive to me as a fag. If you're going to be using it in a derogatory manner, it doesn't really help things. But to have a discussion about freedom of expression in a country that really doesn't have a tradition of defending freedom of expression is a good thing.
You're so right. You know what? I want you to brainstorm with me for a minute about, just to give the censors of the CBSC and the CHRC and the CRTC ideas for how we could deal with offensive words without using the billy club of the state. Let's brainstorm. #1 is ignore it.
Right.
#2 is debate it. #3 is have a political campaign of your own, write a letter to the editor, call a talk show. What can people do if they're really mad about a hurtful word that doesn't involve calling 911? Bruce, what do you think?
Well, I think they just need to talk about it. Let's discuss it. Let's debate it. We're in a democracy. That's what we do. If we disagree with things, we bring them to the public forum and we fight it out.
What is it about? I mean, we Canadians, you just said this a minute ago, we're not quite as vigorous in defending our freedoms as our American cousins are. The ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, they go to bat even for, especially for the hard-to-love cases.
Yeah.
They send black ACLU lawyers to defend Klansmen.
That's right.
And they're proving a point that you don't have to like the guy and what he says to defend his right. Why don't we have that, Bruce?
Well, we have a different tradition completely. I was very involved. I was mentioned earlier about the Little Sisters case. I was involved with Glad Day here in Toronto, and constantly phoning up media, constantly phoning up what one would assume to be allied organizations, and they're all like, oh, we did our gay story. They didn't understand that freedom of expression is the fundamental of democracy. They really didn't make that connection because within our system, we never had to make that connection. It was given to us. We didn't have to fight for it. And when you don't have to fight for things, you don't really value them to the degree that you otherwise would. However, if you're a gay person, if you understand our history, our whole movement comes out of fighting for freedom of expression.
Personal liberty.
It started trying to get advertisements in community newspapers and college newspapers. Had to go to court to win those. And every step of the way, it was about going to court. It was about fighting, pushing back the censors. And so I think that gay people are very good for our democracy.
Well, I'm glad you believe in liberty, and I'm glad you see it not only as a defense for gay people or any other minority, but as something that transcends those personal identities. It's a Canadian identity. Bruce Walsh, time goes too quickly. Thanks for being here. Oh boy, this is a good discussion. Folks, after the break, we're going to talk about censoring religion. There's nothing we won't touch today. That's next on The Source.